Welcome back. I'm Morgan Thompson with your Newsmax Now update. 3 years after President Obama ordered American troops to withdraw from Iraq, U.S. military operations resumed in the country earlier today. American warplanes launched airstrikes targeting Islamic State artillery in an effort to protect Americans in Iraq and assist the Iraqi government in repelling the militant advance. President Obama authorized military action in the region in an address last night.
But when the lives of American citizens are at risk, we will take action.
Despite the revival of American military involvement, President Obama said again that ground troops will not be sent into the fray. He adds that there is no sustainable American military solution to the crisis in Iraq. Instead, Obama says Iraq must bolster their own security forces and build a stronger community. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, thousands of pro-Hamas demonstrators clashed with Israeli troops in Hebron. Thousands of protesters held up signs supporting the Islamic faction, with banners reading "Gaza and the West Bank are united." At least 2 Israelis have been wounded by rocket fire since the ceasefire ended. That's your Newsmax Now update. Now back to the Steve Malzberg Show.
All right, folks, welcome to hour number 2, Friday edition of the Steve Malzberg Show. In just a moment, we'll be joined in studio by Msgr Jim Lisante, pastor of Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Massapequa Park, New York, and co-host of Close Encounter. You also see him on Fox News as a regular contributor. And we're going to discuss the attacks now and the violence in Iraq, and also the situation between Israel and Gaza. Also, senior editor of City Journal and a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, Steve Malanga, will be here. And we're going to talk all about the scandal surrounding Governor Cuomo in New York and why you're not hearing about it from anywhere else except really this show and a few other outlets. Walter Williams, I love talking to Walter, distinguished economist at George Mason University, syndicated columnist, and his provocative column, Western Anti-Semitism. All that, give me 5, and oh so much more on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show. All right, folks, welcome aboard, and we'll get to Msgr Jim Lisante in just a moment. It's very, very interesting, the conversations we've had so far in this show with Peter King and General Vallely and Andrew Bostom and about the situation. And it is, you hope and you pray, really, because when you see the slaughter of Christians or any ethnic group as part of ethnic cleansing, as part of forced conversion, it really makes no sense that if we're launching airstrikes, if we're going through this whole thing, and they're sitting out there in convoys and their command and control centers, and we know where they are, and I'm talking about ISIS, why don't we blow them away? Why don't we destroy? We keep hearing ISIS was kicked out by Al-Qaeda. They're so bad and evil and violent. Well, why don't we just blow them all up? And I gotta believe it's because it's not in the DNA of this president. We're going after them. But first of all, the humanitarian drop, that's well and good, but you can't keep people on a mountain, even if you keep dropping water and food. That's the one issue. But saying they're coming close to Americans now, and if they come close to Americans, we're going to get that convoy that's coming close to Americans. What about the Christians they're slaughtering? What about the other ethnicities they're slaughtering? What about all the damage and slaughtering they've done and the destroying of religious symbols and mosques and other things? Kill them. They're a terrorist group. I don't understand taking it, I'd like to say halfway. It's not even halfway. It's a quarter way. And I'm led to believe by the president that if ISIS turns around and doesn't infringe upon where the Americans are, we're going to leave them alone. Now, we have launched at least 1 or 2 rounds of airstrikes, which is good, but we need to do more, like Congressman King said. All right, Msgr Jim Lisante will join us. First, let's listen to what the Pope had to say.
Cristiane a Mosul, Iraq, e in altre parti del Medio Oriente, dove esse, sin dall'inizio del cristianesimo, hanno vissuto con i loro concittadini offrendo un significativo contributo al bene della società. Oggi sono perseguitati. I nostri fratelli sono perseguitati, sono cacciati via.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Pope talking about what's going on in Iraq and for the Christian population and other minority populations. Joining us right now is Msgr Jim Lisante, who is back on the show, I'm glad to say, pastor of Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Massapequa Park, New York, co-host of Close Encounter and Fox News contributor. Father, thank you so great to see you. All right, so you know, this has been going on for quite some time, and you know, I've discussed this, and I've done so many shows on the persecution, the slaughter, the genocide of Christians, not only in Iraq but around the world. But let's focus on, I guess it's better late than never, and the president last night announcing the action that has been taken. Is it too little, too late? Is it better late than never? Where are we?
Well, I'm very happy that we're doing something to stop the slaughter, no doubt about it. And the Holy Father, you know, he's echoing what's been said for a long time. 1965, Pope Paul VI comes out at the UN and says, war no more, never again war. You get nothing for war. John Paul II warns President Bush, don't go into Iraq. It's not going to be easy getting out. No one takes him seriously. America goes in, and it turns out that 84-year-old Pope was correct. So I think popes have, their job is to tell us time and time again, be careful before you go in. Getting out is a mess, and look what's happened now in Iraq. There are some who would even say that Saddam Hussein could hold it together in ways that this present government in Iraq never can. But yeah, you highlight, Stephen, I'm grateful for you mentioning that Christians around the world, especially in that part of the world, are being persecuted unmercifully, but not just Christians. You know, there are so many minority groups.
Yeah.
It seems that if you know, it's interesting. Religion, it seems to me, always has to be about personal choice, my decision to follow a particular brand of religion or a particular view of God. This notion that a segment of the Islamic population can go out and convert people by either killing them, castrating them, or saying convert or die is so totally the opposite of what everything religious should be, which is about the freedom to choose to follow your path to God. John Paul II, back in Assisi in Italy, called together all the religious leaders of the world and said, we all find a different way, but every way is worthy of respect. Clearly the guys in ISIS don't buy that.
No, and conversion by the sword is certainly antithetical, as you said, to everything religion stands for. But these people believe that their religious texts, and I haven't read all their religious texts, but there are those who will agree with them, that their religious texts would say that you convert people, you know, by the sword, and the infidels must die, and they take this literally. And this is what, I'm not excusing it. It's sick, but this is what's going on, and it's only members of one religion these days who are taking this literally and doing this all over the world.
There's a great organization, I'm happy to be an advisor for them, called Pave the Way Foundation. Gary Krupp is in charge of it. But they have recently dug up an Islamic passage in sacred scripture for them that says we must always honor, respect, and protect the people of the book. And by that they mean Old and New Testament people, Jews and Christians. So these people are even doing what is contrary to their own theological teaching. It's insane. And of course, how do you ever justify that God, who's the creator of life, thinks I should kill you because your vision of life or your vision of religion is different from mine? It's a contradiction to what God himself is.
Oh no, well, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, you talk about this has been going on for quite some time, and it's not just Christians, it's the minority population. When you look and you see these people on a mountain, you know, and we're dropping food. I mean, ultimately, that's not the answer. I mean, I think these people can't live on a mountain. I mean, but to think that this is going on in this day and age, as this terrorist group rampages through, you know, they want their caliphate, their Islamic State to grow and grow and grow. But again, it's not only them. I mean, you look at Boko Haram slaughtering people as they go along, kidnapping, enslaving girls. I mean, we are living in a time in 2014 where you would think not only is this not possible, but if this were happening, we would be out there, we'd have our government in the United States and our media in the United States would be talking about it. Now I'm seeing breaking news, Christians persecuted in
Right,
Iraq.
right.
As if, well, where have you been for the past year?
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
I think, Steve, we might be seeing, again, and we see it from time to time in history, invincible evil. And it's going to be interesting to see how the West responds to that invincible evil. Certainly, if you look back in history, that Hitler and Nazism were that. Certainly Tojo in Japan was the same. I would say what was going on in Rwanda during the Clinton administration was an example. Absolute evil, the slaughter of innocent people for no reason, purely genocidal.
Those are tribal.
And you and I are just old enough to remember so-called godless communism. We thought they were pretty bad. They're looking relatively calm next to the evil of, what do you call them, fundamentalists in the Islamic faith, or extremists, or zealots, terrorists. I guess there's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
But for the majority of Islamic people, and I know this sounds almost cliche, I think they've got to be mortified and embarrassed. You know, years ago, I'm a pro-life guy and a Catholic, but there are a few Catholics, not many, who would like blow up abortion clinics. I was so proud of my church for coming out and saying that's not pro-life and it's the opposite of our faith.
Sure.
I'm waiting for more Islamic people to do the same.
Yeah, and you know, and I'm glad you bring that up. So because you'll agree with me, I know that's a handful of people. I mean, literally a handful of people. And the left often uses that to say, oh, the radicals on both sides, the Christians and the Muslims. And I say, where are the radical Christians? Oh, they killed abortion doctors. Yeah, 2 people, 3 people. It's too many.
Yes,
but there's not millions of them, and groups all over the world in an organized effort. You can't compare radical Christians or radical Muslims.
No, what's going on is slaughter, and it's just wrong. Now, what do we do to stop it, though? I have to say, and I'm not always a big fan of President Obama, but I think stepping in, using our military limitedly to try to stop ISIS from doing the evil it's doing is probably a good idea. There comes a time when you just can't stand by. And I'm happy to move to another topic, but similar, to see Europe start to say we have to put the line in the sand in terms of Russia. We can't allow them to destroy the nation, which is the Ukraine. And I'm very proud of them for doing that too.
Let's see how tough they are, because there's all kinds of reports that it's just a matter of time before Putin takes the next step into Ukraine, and I hope it's not true. Let's talk about another front, and that's Hamas and Israel. The ceasefire broken again today. Hamas didn't want to extend it anymore. They fired rockets into Israel, and now Israel's retaliated. This moral equivalency, you know, again, you know, I'm saying, hey, Barack Obama, I hope you don't kill a child when you're bombing anybody, because then you're going to have to hold yourself to the same standard you're holding Israel, which is ridiculous. Yeah. It's war. You know, if these cameras were around when we were fighting the Nazis, we'd lose.
Yeah, we
bomb cities.
That's right,
I mean, you got, when you're at war and you're protecting your people, your sovereignty, your interests, people are going to die. That's unfortunately war. But here, you were counting every single incident.
There seems to be a suicidal mentality. You can't be in Hamas and believe you're doing your people and your nation any good. There should be 2 states. That's the position of the church, Palestine and Israel, to live in peace side by side. But if you know that Hamas is dedicated to eradicating Israel, how do you live in peace? And I think the Israelis are doing what they need to protect themselves. Yes, innocent people die in every single war. I'm not saying this is it's a horrible thing, but we understand how it happens. Hamas can come back to the table, they can make peace, we can put an end to this violence and bloodshed, but not so long as they remain a terrorist organization, which is what they are.
Which is what they are, which is why it blows me away when they put a Hamas guy in a suit and you put him on CNN and then they report, Hamas disputes what Israel said. Would it be Al-Qaeda dispute? Would you report that Al-Qaeda disputes what the U.S. said? I mean, it's just insanity. So ultimately, a man of faith such as yourself sees hope in this, as Madeleine Albright said, a world that is a mess?
It has to be. Yeah, there's no other way out but hope. We have to, first of all, stop the bad guys, there's no doubt about that, and use the gifts that we have in terms of our might, and try to protect especially those who have no one else to speak up for them. You know, it's an odd thing. In America, as a Christian, you're mainstream. As a Catholic, we have 6 Catholics on the Supreme Court. We've had a Catholic president. So we've arrived. But around the world, Catholics live in such danger, and Christians are so awfully oppressed. It's an interesting thing for us to watch and say, now what are we willing to do? What are we willing to commit ourselves to do to protect not just Christian minorities, but the only democracy in the Middle East, Israel? What are we willing to do for the people in Iraq who are being slaughtered by these terrorists? Are we willing to pay the price? It's going to be an interesting question to answer.
Monsignor, thank you so much. Great to see you. Thank you for coming on and offering hope.
I hope.
Yes. All right, folks, Monsignor Jim Lisante, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by the senior editor of City Journal, so don't go away. Right here, all straight ahead on the Steve Malzberg Show, only on Newsmax Television.